Good morning. Welcome back to day 2 of our semi-annual Empower hearings, and right on time, Commissioner O'Donnell. We are going to begin today with the joint presentation of the PHI companies, both Pepco and Delmarva, so I'll turn it over to the panel.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Doug Mikeel. I'm here on behalf of Pepco and Delmarva Power. To my far left is Edward Muzz, our manager of commercial programs. To his right is Ms. Lori Schellender, our manager of DSM. To her right is Mr. Nate Gillespie, the manager of residential programs. To Mr. Gillespie's right is Wayne Hutters, our manager of program design. And to my immediate left is Will Ellis, our new director of Empower. Mr. Demarest retired, and Mr. Ellis has taken over.
Welcome, Mr. Ellis.
I will turn it over to Mr. Ellis, and we'll give you our presentation and answer any questions you may have.
Great. Thanks, Doug. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. As Doug stated, William Ellis, Portfolio Manager for Pepco and Delmarva Power's energy efficiency programs. Just coming back to PHI and DSM after spending the last 2 years in the Exelon utilities world, leading cross-functional peer groups, helping implementing projects and best practices in the fields of energy efficiency, digital strategy, innovation, as well as solar. So extremely happy to be back leading our energy efficiency team, helping our customers save money and energy. I will quickly give an overview of our 2018 to 2020 programs, and then I will turn it over to the team to talk through program performance as well as the successes we've had for the first half of 2018. Our 2018 to 2020 filing consists of almost 20 programs offering our customers multiple ways to participate in our Empire Maryland programs, making it easy for them to save energy and reduce their overall energy usage. Savings from our residential and CNI programs will achieve over 18 million megawatt hours through the life cycle of the measures offered, saving our customers millions of dollars in bill savings. With over 267 megawatts of peak demand reduction, we'll continue to be leveraging our demand response programs for peak savings with almost 300,000 active devices within our service territories. We continue to look for opportunities to improve on our programs year over year, cycle over cycle, finding innovative ways to engage and motivate our customers to take action. Some of the new programs for this cycle include increasing our offerings in smart thermostats by offering them in multiple programs and integrating those across our demand response and energy efficiency programs, trying to offer deeper savings for our customers through our thermostat optimization program. For our commercial customers, we now have our Energy Efficient Communities program offering concierge services to our municipalities and counties, streamlining the process for them to participate in our programs. And lastly, we have adopted best practices from other Empire Maryland utilities as we continue to share lessons learned. One of those programs being the Business Instant Discount program, which has been very successful for our sister utility, BG&E. When we include all of our programs, including lighting and behavioral, we'll expect that our programs will touch over 1 million customers throughout the next 3 years. So super excited about that. Yesterday, we heard from staff and other stakeholders speaking to the cost effectiveness of these programs and how successful they've been, and that for every dollar spent, customers are realizing at least $2 in benefits for these programs throughout the state of Maryland. But I did want to highlight the environmental impact that these programs also have for our communities. Growing up in D.C. and being born with asthma, I know firsthand the challenges and importance of energy justice, as well as the importance of indoor air quality. So I'm truly thankful for the differences that each and every one of us in this room, as well as the over 600 contractors and trade allies, we have participating in the program to make these programs successful. And so if we achieve the results over the 3 years in this program cycle, the megawatt hour savings that you see on the slide today is equivalent to removing over 3 million cars from the road. Lastly, the programs has been successful, and we continue to be recognized across the energy for the work that we've been doing for Pepco and Delmarva Power. For the 6th straight year, Pepco has been awarded the Sustained Excellence Award by Energy Star, and the 3rd straight year for Delmarva Power. Recently, our demand response programs have been recognized by Frost & Sullivan for our impressive penetration rate, where over 60% of the eligible customers are participating in our demand response programs. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hutters to talk through the portfolio savings for the first half of 2018.
Thank you, Will. Just wanted to highlight the results of both Pepco and Delmarva Power's Empower program during the first 6 months of the 2018 to 2020 cycle. As has been mentioned by others yesterday, Pepco really had a great 6 months. Within the first sixth of the cycle, we have produced 27% of the savings we need for the cycle. So we are really 3/4 of the way for what our goal is for 2018 in just half the year. So Pepco did really well. Delmarva Power also had a good cycle. Not quite as outstanding as Pepco, but right where it's supposed to be. We're currently at just under 18% of our full cycle goal, where about 16% of the cycle period has gone by. And as a percentage of sales, we are over the 50% mark for 2018. So I'm really happy to report that both utilities are doing very well. Moving on to the next slide. When Pepco and Delmarva Power design our programs, and we're designing our programs, we took very seriously the Commission's sentiment that limiting customer bill impact through the Empower surcharge was a very important program design consideration. So to that goal, we really are looking for programs where we can get a lot of savings, potentially for not a lot of cost. And this chart really gives you kind of an overview of which programs, where the money's being spent and where the savings are coming from. Things I'll point out on for Pepco is that the CVR program really has no impact on the Empower Maryland surcharge, but does produce sizable savings. I'll also note, we talked a lot about midstream programs, and the midstream residential programs such as HVAC are included in that green piece of pie, which is a little less than 18% of costs, but it's only producing less than 3% of savings, which is one of the reasons we're looking at new ways of delivering those products through the midstream, because in the long run, we believe that that will lower costs and potentially increase savings.
Mr. Ellis, CVR, I don't see any costs on here.
That is correct.
Oh, so it's zero.
That's zero. I mean,
Okay.
We report the savings through this, but as far as the surcharge impact is included, there is no cost of CVR affecting the Empower Maryland surcharge.
Thank you.
The other thing I will point out to another program that gives us a very good bang for the buck is the behavior program, which is about 4% of costs and 12% of savings. And I know we heard yesterday from VEIC and OPC. VEIC put up a chart saying, well, if lighting was taken out of the equation, what would be the forecast for different programs going forward? And it was noted that the behavior program, as they presented it in Vermont, was a pretty flat line. And I think if you were to do a similar exercise both for Pepco and Delmarva Power, you would see that very similar flat line. I mean, I think the behavioral programs are producing a nice amount of savings for us, but I don't see when lighting goes away that we're going to be ramping up that program. It's going to continue producing about the same level of savings it's currently producing at expected about similar costs. Moving to the next slide, it's really the same information, but for Delmarva Power, the general trends are pretty similar. One thing I will point out from a total cost standpoint is that we are spending a lot of money with DHCD on the low-income program, which is over 20% of the costs currently going into the surcharge. Other results are pretty similar. So on that note, I will turn it over to Mr. Gillespie, who will delve into residential program specifics.
Mr. Hutters, the DHCD program, it looks like the costs are 21.4%. Maybe I'm colorblind, but what's the savings?
The savings is rounding to zero in this case, as it was pointed out yesterday.
Okay.
It was a very small saving, so it is greater than zero, but it doesn't really show up on the chart.
There, I keep missing the zeros. Yes, there is a little slice for zero. Okay, thank you.
And that's not to mean that those programs are not important. We absolutely have to have programs for all of our customers. And low-income customers are an important part of our customer mix.
The programs are important, but if they're producing no savings, how important are they?
Well, they are producing minimal savings. But like I'm just saying that, we're spending a lot of money there, so we might, just pointing out that that's a significant part of the surcharge.
But, I mean, minimal savings, we're saying zero, close to less than 1%?
Less than 1%, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. So the first slide that I have here goes over the work that we've done on integrating the Empower Maryland branding into our communications. After receiving the Commission's order and further clarification on it, we immediately started adjusting materials that day that were in the works, and then over the next month after that started going back to materials that we had produced over the beginning half of the year to update them. So all materials will be pushed out to the market as required by the end of the year. So we're making good progress on that.
Thank you very much for including that in the presentation today. This looks good to me. Did you have a chance to work with MEA and OPC and Alliance, other work group members in developing these?
So in actually our actual marketing strategy on those, no, but the incorporation, obviously, we worked on how the Empower Maryland branding would be done.
Okay, good. Yeah, just seeing this for the first time, though, I think this is
Yeah, I thought
really
it,
good.
I'm
Thank you
glad
for
that you
including it in the
appreciate that. We
presentation.
wanted to
Yeah.
show kind of some of the different programs, what they look like, and then how that's incorporated for both commercial and residential.
So, Mr. Gillespie, what type of response have you received, if any, from consumers? I mean, I noticed, for example, there are multiple logos on some of these. You have the Energy Star, the Empower Maryland, one of the different utility companies. What type of responses have consumers provided?
So I have not gotten any feedback. We haven't heard feedback specifically on the branding of Empower Maryland from our customers. It is a challenge. That is something that is a challenge when you're trying to incorporate a lot of different things in one piece. And we were pleased to be able to find what we thought was a good mix of that. We want to take advantage of the National Energy Star branding, so it's important to us to have that information there and that logo present to give credibility to the programs, as well as the Empower Maryland showing them how that connects to the line item on their bill. And then obviously our company needs to be represented so they know who to contact. So it is a balancing act, and I feel as if we did a good job of balancing that in these pieces.
Is that something that you would monitor for or watch to see if consumers are responding, saying, "Oh, what is this?" And
I would say I typically would not, but if the commission is looking for us to monitor that, we would look for ways to see if we can gather feedback either from our call centers or from any insight we do into customer marketing.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, and just adding to that, I think it would be also great to just work with OPC and Maryland Energy Administration too, again, to get their feedback, because this seems to be on first look, a good start, but I think some of those issues that Commissioner Linton brought up we bring to the work group. So thank you again for including this.
Absolutely.
And we do send these materials to the work group, especially to our contractors. If we are sending direct mail pieces related to our HVAC or home performance, we do allow our contractors in our working group community to review that to make sure that they're comfortable with any of the language we're using in our marketing pieces. So that is a part of the working group process.
Okay, then I'll move on to the Pepco residential.
Before
sorry.
you move on, I'm sorry. Are these marketing materials paid for out of the behavioral program in any way? Are they kind of merged?
No, these materials, each program pays for their own marketing materials.
Because the case could be made, I think, that they could be in some way. They're encouraging the behavioral change, right? They participate in the program. I just was curious. I don't.
Right, and from time to time, we do include sort of modules in the behavior program that promote other programs. So we've had modules that promote the Quick Home Energy Checkup program. We've had modules that promote the Energy Wise Rewards demand response program. So, we are regularly using the home energy reports to promote other programs.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
And also, just to note, the participation in these programs is subtracted out of the behavior savings. So if a customer obviously gets both pieces and they respond to this and get an appliance, we back that out on the behavior side.
Very good.
All right, so the Pepco residential energy efficiency overview. We're very pleased with our performance in this area in the residential sector. As you can see in the center, lighting remains a large portion of our residential portfolio. It is very cost effective and is still contributing very nicely. QHEC being the next program down, that is a substantial contributor. With that, over 40,000 megawatt hours were saved in residential in the first half with over 46,000 participants. Just a couple of items in overview to note. Smart thermostats do cut across all of our different programs, and we had 953 smart thermostats installed in the Pepco territory in the first half, and about 55,000 LEDs direct installed through the QHEC program. And then kind of a little bit of a deeper dive in the next slide. The lighting program was 887,000 bulbs, and again represented 83% of our portfolio. The appliance rebates also doing very well. We had a little bit of a slow start in appliance over both Delmarva and Pepco. However, that trend has reversed in in the fourth quarter is when it will be recognized that sales have picked up there, and we will be meeting all targets. The QHEC program, changing to our average savings for lighting increased by 30% by implementing the calculated savings approach, meaning instead of taking the deemed value of the light bulb, we actually took the light bulb that we took out of the socket, what that wattage was, and compared it to what we put in there. So that increased our savings that we were getting for being able to screw that light bulb in. The new homes program also has done very well. 327 homes in the first half, and of those, 282 smart thermostats installed. Home performance with Energy Star program. We've seen an increase in our per project savings of 49%. So our participation is not up in that program as it is in DPL. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the projects that are being done, they're going deeper with the performance-based incentives. So it's doing what it's supposed to do, and now we're continuing to get contractors on board and getting used to the new PBI incentives. So I look forward to that increasing as well over the future.
Just a question. I noted recently when I went online to the Pepco website that you can actually get more detail when you look at your own usage down to the level of suggestion of where you're using energy in your home. Are you trying to incorporate some of those features into your Empower programs at all, and also then taking it to the next step of suggesting specific measures?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So that's a great tool to, in general, allow customers know this is how we're seeing energy being used in your home. And that's like the first step. For example, if you went onto our website and you can kind of answer some of the questions and get down to what that mix looks like of how you're using it, I would say the next step from there is to try to push you to a QHEC program. Let's have somebody come out and take a look at it. Most people need kind of that stepping through the process. They might not want to say, I want to pay for a home performance with Energy Star audit right up front, but we try to get them into that QHEC program so that someone can come out, take a look at the home, and say, yes, this is how you're using it. Here's some ways that you can improve, and if you want to improve even further, here's the next step that makes you eligible for up to $7,500 in rebates. So it kind of stair steps the customers through easy online, and then start pushing them through those to the more.
Maybe I just didn't spend enough time then at that point. I guess I think I was online to try to pay my bill, but but as far as but it does easily lead one through the whole process.
We do have marketing modules within our website that try to retarget that, and we're going to be getting better at that in the future.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions on Pepco in particular? I'll jump to DPL if not on Pepco. So on Delmarva, 8,577 megawatt hours saved in residential. Lighting was a little bit of a smaller percentage in Delmarva, and that was mostly because it took us a little bit longer to ramp up in that territory our lighting program for this season. There was a large home improvement store that was going through some resets and did not want to start the promotions with us until June. Fortunately, once they did start, they performed far better than we expected, and you'll see that in our next quarterly or our next semi-annual report. So those programs did not start effectively until the end of June. So we have no concerns about that making the yearly goal, and I believe we'll exceed it. In Delmarva, smart thermostats, 96 thermostats installed. and 16,362 LEDs installed through the QHEC program. And diving into deeper detail on the program, so lighting, 180,000 light bulbs. In the HVAC program, 7 thermostats were sold there, 89 thermostats in the appliance rebate program. So just to step back for a second, I had mentioned before that we do offer thermostats through all of the channels. So in any way a customer is participating in our program, they have the ability to get a smart thermostat rebate or pointed in that direction, whether it's through an HVAC contractor, through going into the store and purchasing it. We're trying to make sure that anywhere a customer is trying to buy a thermostat, they can and take advantage of the program. In Delmarva, Home Performance with Energy Star has done phenomenal. I'm very pleased with the results there, and it's attributed to the change to performance-based incentives and the contractors really jumping on board relatively quickly and understanding the value that that represented to their customers and incorporating HVAC into the mix early on. So that is what's driving the results there. We've been working to help educate and train the contractors better and incorporate more HVAC on the Pepco side so that we can see some of those same results there. Family Farms, that was one that we were very excited to launch this year. It took us a little bit longer to get that up and running than we expected. There's a lot of outreach and education that needs to occur there. And the segment that we were targeting, poultry farmers, I would say it was more challenging to break into there and gain trust to be a trusted resource in that area. We did record our first application last month. I believe we might have another one before the end of the year, so we will be showing results in that program this calendar year.
Can I ask you a question about that program? I have a particular interest because I think it's a good program and it has application in other areas of the state, depending on what we learn from what you're doing. Are you working with the Maryland Farm Bureau, statewide Maryland Farm Bureau, or the local affiliates in the counties in your service territory in DPL?
We have been working with the Association of Farmers and with MEA as far as trying to coordinate and learn from their programs and try to leverage as much as we can.
What is the Association of Farmers?
It's the Poultry Association, I believe, is the one that we're working with directly to try to get leverage in some of those conversations with the farmers.
So the Maryland Farm Bureau and its local affiliates are very strong ag advocates, and they are probably a very good organization to work through and reach out to. I'm not saying don't reach out to the others, but
Right.
but the Farm Bureau is a very mature and robust organization who would probably be worth the effort if this is coming up slowly. Because I'd like to see it, of course, be successful and move forward.
Absolutely, yeah. I will make sure that if we are not, that we will be. And I will say that getting that first application was a gate that we needed to get through, because we'll then take that and build a case study to actually be able to say, this farmer that you may know experienced these savings, and then that also lends more credibility to, okay, I should pay attention to this, and it could save me some money.
The utility may also benefit for this particular program, reaching out to and partnering with the Maryland Department of Agriculture as well as the Farm Bureau. So,
Absolutely, thank you.
thank you.
And the other program that we had launched that was different in this area was the schools program. So that's the education program, going out and providing a curriculum to teachers to go over energy use with fifth graders. So far, that program is exceeding our expectations. We did receive 1,197 customers participated in that in the first half of the year, and we weren't actually expecting to see results until the fall for that, so we were pleased that we were able to get a good start on that program as well. And that is all I have specifically for residential. I'm interested in any questions that you have.
So I'd like to, should I talk to you about the midstream? Okay. Just want to make sure. You know, we heard a lot yesterday, and we heard that there were some concerns with distributors from the contractors, that the distributors don't know about the program, might have issues with setting up a administration for dealing with the incentives and that sort of thing. So I'm trying to understand, again, my understanding of midstream is that we're trying to move the market so that we're not, the least efficient appliances aren't even going to be available, generally speaking, that we're pushing to higher efficiency equipment at the distributor level. So, explain to me who you've spoken to or what types of distributors you've spoken to and what your plan is to reach, say, HVAC distributors. Because, are there, I guess my question is, you've got, say a Carrier or some other, large HVAC, is there some sort of middleman distributor that then deals with the contractor, or does the contractor deal directly with Carrier? And if there is a middle person, how do you plan to communicate and work with that person?
So yes, it is the distributors that we're reaching out to, and Carrier has their network of distributors, and all the manufacturers do. They'll have, say, one specific distributor that distributes their products. So a lot of times those distributors will have a lot of representation from a particular manufacturer in those conversations. We are reaching out to all the local distributors. We do have agreements signed with some. We're waiting for some others to return them with signatures. The one thing to note, when it was mentioned that some of the concerns that the distributors were raising, when we talk about a true midstream program, I think you had mentioned yesterday that concept that it is incentivizing the distributor. The customer is not necessarily involved in that transaction. They shouldn't be in a true midstream program. The issues that distributors are going to have is if we are dictating to them that there's an amount that has to be passed down to the customer, the problem that you have there is that the distributor is now fronting money to the contractor, and that's the risk that's being referred to there. If the incentive is going to them and only them, and they distribute it how they see fit, we let the market decide how that's going to move through, then you don't have that risk. The distributor isn't waiting for that they're putting out money to the customer to wait for us to give it back to them. So that's the critical part of it. If they have to wait for something there, that presents a lot of risk, and there will be a lot of resistance. That's why we're moving in the direction that we're moving in.
And do you already have, I know that the lighting, for example, is midstream. Do you have existing channels through the lighting program, say, like a Home Depot or, Ace Hardware type, I guess Ace is usually more individually owned, but, a Home Depot that is that a place where people actually buy or a contractor would go to buy an HVAC, and they would already have channels set up, wouldn't they?
It's the same concept, but it's different areas. So even if those large retailers, when you see HVAC equipment in particular represented there, that's actually kind of through a contractor direct. It's being displayed there at Home Depot. The sale may run through them, but for the most part, most HVAC equipment is purchased through a contractor, through a distributor,
right,
through that channel. So, and even with that being said, there's different sets of manufacturers, so you can't leverage the same exact relationships or systems even between those two items, since they're very different. So what we would be doing is making sure that we have coverage of the Maryland distributors, that everybody's represented. And when you hear that someone says they're not going to participate, they might say that now. But once all of their competitors are participating, they'll participate as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is what we've seen in other markets.
Okay, and so while perhaps some of the feedback that we've heard that we haven't been contacted or that sort of thing, you're in the process now of contacting them and kind of getting this program up and running.
That is correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, we are right now in discussions with all of them on how it would work, making them comfortable with how they would participate and what benefits they would see out of it.
Okay, thank you.
Follow up on that. How do you move the money to the distributor? At what point in this program? Is it when they order the inventory from the manufacturer?
No.
Or is it when they move the product to the contractor?
Yes, it's when they move the product to the contractor. So there is a requirement that we have, and we keep it at very minimal requirements for what information is needed for us to pay that rebate. The contractor would need to tell the distributor what address this equipment is being installed in, and then the distributor would, through a portal, come back to us and say, this is the equipment that was installed at this address, and then we would issue the incentive to them from that.
Okay. So if the product has already been moved and is going to the address, what does providing the money after that fact, what incentive does it provide to move the product? It's already moved.
So the idea would be that since we're providing that incentive, the distributor is going to start pushing and selling more of that product. For example, if right now, yes, we're not saying that there isn't high efficiency equipment available and even available in their warehouses right now to go and get right now. What we want to do is say, well, if maybe they have 50% of their equipment is 13, 14 SEER and 50% of it is 16 SEER and above, I'm looking to try to move that needle that they start saying, well, I don't really want to stock as much of this product because I'll get incentive if I get my contractors to sell this product. So they are crucial, the distributors are crucial in that when they make their stocking decisions of what they're going to promote to their customer base, in moving that it's more high efficient equipment. And then as we move through this and as you move through a market transformation concept, we would then continue to tweak that. So, okay, now we have more 16 SEERs. Now I'm going to put something on 17 SEERs. So now I want 17 SEER to start being more of the standard. So that's how we start moving the entire market in that direction.
You may be getting a sense that although some may think this is the future and it's clear that this is where we have to go, there are a lot of questions here, and it's fairly opaque to many of us. We're not sure how it operates, how it really works and moves the market. So
yeah, so there's one thing that we're seeing this in a little bit. We're still waiting for data on the appliance side for the program that we're doing with appliances. But what we've seen is if the retailer or distributor doesn't have knowledge of what they're going to get or what they're going to be incentivized to sell before they make those stocking decisions, we're not going to see very good results, which is why you're going to see a slower ramp up to a program like this. And I think that's what I'm going to be seeing in this next half with the appliances, that there might only be one qualifying refrigerator on the floor right now that would meet that. But as the retailers start seeing this and they say, well, why didn't I sell more of that? So now I want 2 of those on the floor. It's going to start moving in that direction. And yes, you're right. It does feel a little opaque because we're betting on what they're going to do from an economic perspective or how they're going to run their businesses. But as long as we provide that incentive, it will shift the market, and we've seen it in other areas.
And we've seen this in the lighting program, where you think about of how much shelf space CFLs used to have in our stores at Home Depot and Lowe's. And now that the Empire Maryland program is coming to Maryland, you see LEDs is taking a majority of the shelf space in those. So the incentive that we're using is really taking up that shelf space. And so for the HVAC program, our hopes is that what these distributors are stocking and buying from the manufacturers would take up that shelf space in their inventory, so that when contractors do come to them requesting HVAC equipment, that's what they have in their inventory.
I have another question on residential, if we're getting ready to move to CNI.
Actually, before we move on, then, if that's okay, I think Commissioner O'Donnell and Herman have done an excellent job in really fleshing out a lot of these issues with midstream, but I'm also very interested in this as well, and just wanted to add that I think it's important that you work with the members of the Alliance. We started talking about this, as I recall, back 2016 even, and that this was a best practice that we should be moving in the midstream direction. So I will tell you, I was a little caught by surprise by the blowback that we're getting at this point, that maybe this isn't universally accepted, or it's not something that everyone supports at this point. So again, I've been convinced that this is a direction we should be going, but just speaking from my own experience in getting a ductless mini, and this is several years ago, so maybe it's not completely relevant, I did rely on it was a nationally advertised, or actually locally advertised contractor, received several bids, and a lot of the recommendation came from those individuals, and it was based on, if you get this particular product, it comes with an efficiency benefit. So I would just add that, we do need to make sure that everyone is involved, all work group members are involved to make sure that this is working, because, again, I'm concerned that by the blowback we're getting toward adopting the midstream program. So anyway.
Yes, absolutely, and that is something that is understandable, because it, by moving in this direction, we're changing the way, let's say some contractors have done their business. So if they've built a story and their sales pitch around the Empower Maryland rebates, and that was the hook in order to get the customer to sign, by changing that, that's really changing their story or the way they do business. So it's completely understandable that the first reaction would be, no, I absolutely don't want this. But moving upstream, like you said, is the right direction to go, and it will just take a little time of working with everybody to get there.
I hope you're right. All right.
So, before we move off, I had a question on the behavioral program. In both companies' testimonies, you used this sentence: operationally, the program is stable, and through the collaborative working group process, the company continues to look for new ways to drive ongoing savings. I appreciated the statement that we didn't think the program by Mr. Hutters was going to grow, it was going to be stable, and so I appreciate that. But the innovative new ways to drive ongoing savings, innovation, is of particular interest, obvious to me. And you participate in the behavioral work group, correct?
Yes.
So the work group had some direction from the commission to develop a pilot for innovative use of an investment we've made in this state, the AMI, and MMV, at a new look at MMV, and give us some learning experience with regard to how to use that data to drive behavior shift, load, shape load, shave load, and do a lot of good things. And this, to me, is the opportunity. So if you continue to look ways to drive ongoing savings, isn't this it?
It's one thing we're obviously working with the work group on that. That's still a topic of discussion. We've talked about it. We'll have continuing meetings. I know our report, I think, is due in a couple months. That is obviously a topic that has had a lot of discussion. Well, I'm sure we'll have more discussion. But there's also a lot of little things we can do, to make the program better. We're not necessarily always looking for, big changes in the program there, but, what things can we do to tweak the program, present data, potentially segment our customers in a little different way that might be more meaningful to a particular customer. I could, put together, a list of things that we've done that are what I call program tweaks. We're not necessarily looking to do lots of big pilots on the program, but we don't want the program to be just stagnant or static. We're always looking to see, how can we use AMI data if we have...
Right, so I got you. I appreciate that.
Disaggregation type data that we can get through the AMI data.
So I got that. The little pilot on the billing issue, that's a little tweak in my mind.
I would agree with you.
I want to swing for the fences here. I want to learn something substantive. And when the commission says in an order, look at this.
We are.
Well, the work group rejected it the first time, and the substantial players in the work group are the advocates and the utilities. And they said no. And a little bird, so I got a pretty well-developed sense of what goes on behind the scenes, other than the company line on the front. And my sense is that the only reason we got what we got in terms of the response to that direction from the commission was the fact that we withheld 2 years of funding for the behavioral programs until something was produced for us. And we wouldn't have even gotten that much had we not done that. So I'm wondering how willing the company is to genuinely take a new look, the companies to take a new look, and the advocates for that matter, at developing a pilot that looks and utilizes the AMI data to measure the changes in behavior in a new way. Can someone for the companies comment on that? How willing are you?
Like I said, it's an ongoing discussion in the working group. I don't want to speak for the group or when that has not been finalized
for the
yet.
Companies. I want to gauge the company's earnestness and willingness to pursue this.
Well, we want to take it, speaking for Pepco and Delmarva Power, obviously the commission has made it very clear that this is something that you want us to look very seriously about, and we take that direction, so we are looking seriously at it. We're working with the work group process as instructed, and, we would like the program to be as successful as possible, and we are looking at ways that we can potentially do that.
So I'm speaking for myself, as one commissioner. This direction, in my mind, is not an invitation to veto the idea. It's not. I want to send that message very clearly from me.
Okay, message taken.
Just if I can add, this is an issue I think Commissioner O'Donnell speaks to very well. But I did want to say it's not speaking just for one commissioner. I agree very much with what he's saying, that we really need to make sure we're getting full understanding of the value of the behavior programs, and that we're getting full value from our AMI investment. So I think his points are right on. So again, I associate myself with his remarks.
We definitely hear your challenge loud and clear, and we'll make sure we take that into account when we work through the working group process. Thank you.
All right, good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Edward Muzz, I'm the Commercial Manager for Pepco and Delmarva Power. First, I'll be providing a portfolio overview for the commercial programs in Pepco. Performance was actually pretty strong in Pepco. We had 1,400 applications, equating to over 76 gigawatt hours of energy saved. For the first semi-annual period, this was 58% of our goal. So if 50% was the goal, we overachieved there. We're on track to hit the entire end-of-year forecast and have a strong pipeline for Cycle 4 as well. We also paid incentive dollars to local businesses and service providers, equating to almost $10 million, so it's great giving back to the local economy. Custom saw strong participation, 750 measures installed, 4.1 gigawatt hours saved. We have a strong pipeline. We have NASA and NIST closing the next coming months, so a lot more energy savings to come in the second half of the year. And I think typically for commercial programs, we see with fiscal periods and cycles, the second half of the year is stronger than the first. So forecast is definitely good for 2018. Taking a look at the sector served, we see that 52% was hospitality and lodging. That's due to a large CHP project actually at the Gaylord, so that's skewing that a little bit. Beyond that, we see pretty balanced among the sectors, so retail, colleges, office buildings, and industrial warehouse. We have a nice distribution of the sectors beyond that large CHP project. Lighting at a glance, 92,000 LED lamps and fixtures installed. A lot of this was due to our Business Instant Discounts program. This is the commercial midstream program that was new this cycle that launched in March and April. So it's nice to see that we had distributors participating, and we were able to claim savings in the first half of the year, even though there was a delayed start. As far as environmental impacts, 63,000 tons of CO2 removed, equivalent to removing 6,000 homes from the grid for a year, and removing 12,000 cars from the road for 1 year. So Pepco, definitely the story on commercial side is there's balanced and impactful savings coming from a variety of programs. Looking a little bit deeper into the program highlights, we can see the custom program had 76% non-lighting measures installed, which is a great thing to see on the commercial side. We often have lighting driving the savings, so it's nice to have HVAC, VFDs, commercial kitchen, and other types of equipments driving this energy savings beyond lighting. Our building tune-up program also was strong in our performance. We had 85 attendees at operations and maintenance training courses, and we hit 121% of the semi-annual target. We're on track for 215% for the end-of-year forecast for Pepco building tune-up. CHP, as discussed earlier, we already hit our energy savings goal for the year, so we're at 122% for the first half of the year. We're actually expected to hit the cycle goal next year in 2019. So there's a lot of nice CHP projects in the hopper. I know earlier MEA mentioned the collaboration between Pepco and their group, as well as Montgomery County for their public safety and headquarters earlier this week. In our midstream, our distributor program, we have 11 participating distributors and over 50,000 units sold. So again, second half of the year, I think we'll even be stronger yet. Looking really good there. Some really nice lighting projects. We have Tacoma Park, College Park, and Montgomery County submitting street lighting applications. So from 2018 to 2020, we should expect some nice lighting projects to come in. Some of these projects will be done through our Energy Efficient Communities program. Unfortunately, this program did not report savings in the first half of the year. It was a new program. We were developing a memorandum of understanding, and we weren't launched until May. So we're hoping to get some customers involved and signed up with that. We were able to spread awareness through the MML conference earlier in the year. Are there any questions on PEPCO performance, commercial?
Just one question on that last
Sure.
point. Is MML engaged?
Yes.
Have they engaged you?
Yes. So we had a booth at the conference, so we've been in contact with the people there, and they are aware of the program. The trick is the MOU. A lot of customers in this region are hesitant to sign a MOU. There was a lot of lawyer language in there, so we worked on simplifying it to 1 or 2 pages, making it more customer friendly, making it look like it's less restrictive and we're there to help the customer. So those are the changes we made with that program.
I'm of the mind that this is a very good opportunity, and I think the company agrees to reach some savings and to benefit these smaller communities who otherwise couldn't afford these upgrades. And I think it's a very important public policy outreach program, and I know that I appreciate the company putting it forward. And again, I hope it's successful, and we need to use all of our partners, maybe reaching out as well, not just to MML, but to the Governor's Office of Community Relations to help with that as well, to see if there's a way to encourage the communities to at least robustly look at the program. Thank you.
Thanks. No other questions. We'll be moving on to Delmarva Power for commercial. Portfolio of savings here, we achieved 15 gigawatt hours of energy savings. This was actually a little lighter than the 50% of the goal. We're at 33% here. And I think a lot of this is due to the seasonality on the eastern shore over there. Still paid $3.7 million of incentives to our local business and service providers. We do have a strong pipeline in Delmarva. I'm expecting to hit 90% of the forecast for 2018. Custom projects, 36 measures installed, 1.1 gigs saved. And again, we see a different sector of energy savings for Delmarva, which is typical between PEPCO and Delmarva. We have more retail, more colleges and schools. From there, it's industrial warehouse and profit-based. But you'll still see that we're pretty balanced, I would say. One highlight is the college and schools. We had the Cecil County School System participate in our midstream program, where they were able to receive a large incentive for their lighting for their schools there. 87,000 of LED lamps and fixtures installed. Again, from a lot of this is from the Business Instant Discounts program, and there was an impactful environmental portion as well to the program. So reducing CO2, removing energies in homes and cars from the grid as well. So I think a slower seasonal start, but we do have a strong forecast for Delmarva Power. A few program highlights. There was a large new grocery store new to Delmarva Power territory. They completed a warehouse and new construction project, which is nice. We don't get a lot of new construction projects there. They're also planning to open a few more stores in 2019 and 2020. So we do have a nice pipeline for the custom. Highlight was the prescriptive program. It achieved 136% of the semi-annual goal. We're on forecast to hit 254% of the end-of-year goal. So very nice pipeline for prescriptive. New to the small business program, we launched the Small Business Energy Advance. This is a 0% loan for our small business customers. This was new in 2018 for our customers, and we had a 31% adoption rate. So for a brand new loan program, it was nice to see such a high adoption rate. 31% is in line with PEPCO as well. It's a little lower, but it's with what we would expect. Our midstream lighting program, we have 5 distributors, equating to $500,000 in incentives paid. A big part of that was the Cecil County School System. Our tune-up program achieved 137% of the forecast, or will achieve that by the end of the year. And our communities program just launched. We actually had a customer just signed our first MOU, so we're expecting some savings late in the end of the year or early next year. But with that, if there aren't any questions with Delmarva, I'll pass it on to Lori Schellender, our Energy Wise Rewards Manager.
Hi, good morning. I manage our Energy Wise Reward direct load control programs. EWR cycles central air conditioners and heat pumps during peak energy saving days, which are typically the hottest days of the year. So far this year, we have called 2 economic events. one on August 7th and one on August 29th for a duration of 4 hours. We have also initiated a target demand response event in our Bethesda area to help facilitate emergency repairs on our substation at that location. We called that event on June 29th, and this affected approximately 355 customers with an estimated drop load of about 318 kW. As far as our performance for EWR, we've been doing very well. We currently have close to 261 active devices and are definitely on target to meet our 2018 installation targets. Our programs are very well received in the Maryland territories. We do, in these areas, have a high penetration and participation rate, with 65% of eligible customers participating in PEPCO and 34% of eligible customers participating in our Delmarva Power territory. The bottom figures here just go to speak to our Tech Refresh initiative launched in 2016. We have installed over 18,000 Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi capable thermostats since then. Our small business programs continue to struggle a little bit, but we have seen a little bit of an uptick in our participation, specifically in our PEPCO territories, and that is mainly due to increased door-to-door marketing efforts. The next slide speaks to our BYOD, Bring Your Own Device participation option that we plan to launch this quarter in both our PEPCO and Delmarva Power territories. We hope this approach not only encourages customer choice, but will provide EWR the flexibility needed to stay relevant in today's ever-changing thermostat market. Our current platform hosts over 18 different models of smart thermostats from Emerson, Honeywell, and Ecobee. This variety will also ensure that any customers who are participating in our residential smart thermostat programs will have the opportunity to also participate in our EnergyWise rewards. Our initial wave of marketing will include emails sent directly from the manufacturers to eligible customers. They will be promoting our programs and directing them to our enrollment sites. We also plan to launch our Smart Thermostat Savings website that will cross-reference and co-promote smart thermostat offerings across all of our PEPCO or Delmarva programs. So it'll kind of be a one-stop shop where we can show all of the programs that are offering these smart thermostats and how they kind of correlate with one another. Once we actually have the customer-owned devices enrolled in EWR, the customer will receive a $40 annual credit each year they participate. And we absolutely expect the BYOD approach will help mitigate any attrition as well as lower new customer acquisition costs.
Ask a couple questions about your demand response programs, similar to what I asked BGE yesterday. In your overall planning, are you looking at the changes at the PJM level of how they're dealing with now the requirement for aggregation of summer and winter resources, and how you're going to look at planning future demand response, or how you work with your demand response program? And then also, you're probably aware that yesterday the PJM advanced their the load forecast adjustment proposal, which would then require us, if we're going to go that approach, taking more of a demand side approach. So are you factoring all these changes in as you look to how you plan these programs or develop these programs in
Well,
the future?
absolutely. There are a lot of moving parts, both in FERC and PJM right now. I do know that the MRC did endorse the recommendations by the task force yesterday. I believe that that's with the members committee now. So I can't presume to tell you exactly how that's going to directly affect how we, our DR approach in the capacity markets. But I can assure you that folks much smarter than I are working on this and are keeping tabs on this, and will provide us direction once all the pieces kind of fit together.
Okay, great. And I think you recognize that we have to be very nimble in this area because Maryland does just depend very much on these demand response programs. Do you also, are you looking beyond just demand response programs to just looking at critical days? And I think you also, what you referred to as a target response days. But in some other states like California, they're looking at how you can look at demand response even daily to shape load and promote energy efficiency. Are you, as a company, looking at how we can maybe look beyond what we're doing now with demand response and perhaps taking it to the next level?
Sure, we are evaluating many different platforms, various platforms that will take into effect, a lot of DERs on how to affect the load and what we can do, on a daily basis, as well as critical need or, local or larger than that. I know that there are a lot of talks. We are trying to get together with multiple different departments within our company to make sure we're all on the same page and can step forward together, with innovative ideas on how to do that.
Great, yeah, because I think there are a lot of really interesting things. Again, I'm not here to promote one company, but I did sit in a presentation recently with Ohm Connect and how they use the smartphones and how people can. It's almost a game, how they can control their usage and get instant rewards. And this is something people can do on a daily basis. And people are motivated either by money or the suggestion that if they cut usage, they could maybe avoid a fossil plant going online. So anyway, I think there's a lot of interesting things that are happening around the country that we may want to try to explore in Maryland.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Just a comment to the company. So I'm obviously passionate about a few things, but I also want to say that I found this presentation to be very, very helpful. And it's a good reminder that the implementers in the companies, and we heard it yesterday from the utilities, we heard from yesterday as well at BG and Potomac Edison, and I'm sure we'll hear it from the other implementers in both government and utilities today. You're doing important stuff, and I didn't want to let that be lost in my previous admonition or expression of where I think we should go. So I wanted to thank you as well.
Thank you.
Right.
Yep.
Well, our thanks to the PHI companies, as Commissioner O'Donnell did state. You are on track for meeting a lot of your goals. You're ahead of some of them for all of 2018, so we appreciate your efforts. This is an important program, and you did an impressive job on the presentation and your filings today, so thank you very much.
Thank you,
Chairman.
At this point, we're a bit ahead of schedule. We'll invite the Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative to present. Are you good? Okay. I thought you were going to be like 30 minutes late this morning. Bad traffic. Yeah, Mindy was saying. Oh, if we focus there. Yeah, like Edgewater.
A lot of people are going to have allergies today. I think
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. We're ready to begin when you are. My name is Brian Quinn. I'm a lawyer with the Venable firm. I'm here today representing Southern Maryland Electric Co-op. In this proceeding, with me are the subject matter experts from the company, Jeff Shaw and Jennifer Raley. I'll let you figure out who's who. And also, you should have our presentation document. It was just distributed. It's a short presentation document, but I think Jeff's going to begin with a couple comments on the top that discuss some of the issues of that we've heard the Commission is interested in. With that, I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you. Again, Jeff Shaw on behalf of SMECO. And I'm going to take a few minutes here and go through a lot of topics that have been discussed. And then Ms. Raley will go through the presentation, and I'm sure a lot of questions will be had. So stop us at any time. No surprise that SMECO is slightly behind goal. We're doing better than we have in the past, but slightly behind. Chairman, yesterday you asked Potomac Edison, here we are, October, November, do you think you're going to make it? We're going to be close. We've had a very successful Q3 here. Those reports will be emailed in shortly, but we're going to be right on it if we do come in, and if not, it will be slightly behind, but it's going to be really close. Commissioner Richards, yesterday you were talking about the coordination of a lot of different things, PC44 and power, and there was a lot of conversation going on around that, and even system planning. What are the utilities doing to address that? And that's part of my charge at SMECO, and my position is to make sure those efforts are coordinated across the utility. I'll go over and speak to engineering and talk about what we're doing in the Empower programs, what's going on in the PC44 programs, to make sure that everyone in the company knows what's happening in each of our little different silos, and make sure that it is a coordinated effort when we do come up here and talk to you. So just know that SMECO is hearing you loud and clear on that, and doing what's necessary. Yesterday, Commissioner O'Donnell, you were talking about PIDs and what goes on in a PID. And for the utilities, our first time in experiencing those type of R&D programs was in 2015. SMECO ran a smart thermostat PID, which really informed SMECO going forward into where we are today. Know that we file it just like any other program that Mr. Hurley talked about. So savings will be reported. It's treated like any other program. And even when we finished our smart thermostat pilot, we did file with the Commission a smart thermostat report. It's on record that anyone can take a look at. So we talk to the other utilities constantly. We're in stakeholder groups frequently. So it is talked about. It isn't done and siloed and forgotten about. So we're excited where that could lead us in the smart home pilot that we're doing this year as well. So the next 3 years, I should say. So thank you for that. Always when I come before you, I like to give you an update of where we are in the world of AMI, because we've been hearing it now for 2 days. We recently completed our AMI installations just about a year ago now. So our web portal is going live a week from yesterday. So what you've talked about with Baltimore Gas and Electric and the Pepco company, the PHI companies, that will be available to all SMECO members November the 1st. So that 15-minute disaggregation will be there. All the members can log in, take a look, and see everything that the other companies have talked about. So we're really excited about that. And that kind of gets to, Commissioner O'Donnell, what you were talking about just a few minutes ago, new and innovative. For us, the AMI data is new. It is extremely complex. So as a company, it's taken us the better part of a year to digest what exactly are we looking at, and what does it mean to our members, and how can we express this to you in a manner you've never seen before. You've gotten your monthly bill that gives you your 13-month graph on it, but now I can take that and give it to you in 15-minute increments. That's a game changer to us. So we want to make sure when we do come to the market with it here soon that we've got a good story to tell along with it. So that's kind of new and innovative for us going forward. Commissioner Linton, yesterday you were asking a lot of questions around EVs. And what do the EVs mean, and what are we looking at as far as relative to sales? When we filed the most recent filing that we did, we used 2016 as the baseline year. And of course, there would be some minor EV electric sales in there. When I look forward to the next 3-year plan, I'm going to make the assumption that probably the year 2019 is going to be the year for baseline sales for that next 3-year set of plans. So there will be more electric vehicle sales going on that baseline year. And even SMECO in our 10-year plans that we file with the Commission, we frequently say that we're growing as a utility. We still have an annual growth of about 1%. So it is going to be more difficult for SMECO in those out years with some minor electrical vehicle sales and just normal growth in general as to how we're going to get to those types of plans going forward. But just know that it is in our mind and something we do consider. And then lastly, Commissioner Richards, the PJM discussion you just had. we take a little different tact in the way we operate our demand response program. And just the year 2018 alone, we had 14 events. We're very active in chasing the 5 CPs across the footprint here for us within PJM. So we're highly engaged with our demand response program. And I'd say on average over the past 10 years, we probably run anywhere from 8 to 10 events a year. So not as surgical as some of the times it's, we run the whole system at a given time, but we do have the optionality if we need to get surgical with it that we can dial it down to the zip code level. So if we do have certain areas that we need to get to for reliability issues, we can do it.
Since you brought it up, are you also trying to make preparations for these changes that are coming, are being adopted by PJM and are being proposed by PJM?
We are, and we're looking highly at those aggregational type things we can do. We have several vested interest in wind projects across the PJM footprint through PPAs. And inside of those PPAs, we've secured capacity rights. So we can then work that in aggregation. Now, of course, the capacity factor for the wind across the footprint is not all that great, so we would need to add quite a bit more to equal what we deliver in the summer months. But it's something we discuss frequently. Okay. And with that, I'm done unless there's any questions for me before I turn it over to Ms. Raley.
I can wait. I'll wait.
You sure? Okay.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Jennifer Raley on behalf of SMECO. Here to go over the Q1, Q2 2018 progress that we've made. So far, we're at 80% for the residential programs and the gross wholesale megawatt hours savings goal, and at 101% for the commercial and industrial programs. For 2018, we received Energy Star Partner of the Year and Market Leadership Awards. For Q1, Q2, we know that we are below target. We've been very focused and pushing on standing up some of our revised programs, some new programs. So we have 7 new program designs and pilots that we have been really pushing and aggressively trying to get up in Q1, Q2. Here you'll see our few of the program highlights for the first half of 2018. Overall, the existing programs are generally doing very well. You will notice the building operations and performance program looks like an outliner in here, and that is due to low goals that we had set for the first half of 2018, given that it was a new program for us. But we were able to get this program up, and very pleased that participants engaged much quicker than we expected. So we've had good results for the first half. And looking at the annual goal, we will be on track to hit closer to 100% with the next semi-annual report. And here you'll see some of the programs that are behind target. We are continuing to work through some of the startup and redesign phases with these programs, and I'll touch on those a little bit more in the next few slides.
Maybe at this point, I could just ask the question about, since you are doing so well, it looks like in these program areas, if I understand correctly, you're asking for for funding for a new program, and that's for the Energy Advance Online Payment Program, which I understand is a very successful program in other utilities. But if you're already doing well with your commercial programs, can you just explain why you would need this additional, program?
Actually, it's not an additional program. It's just adding on to the small business program and adding the finance portion. It's something that the Commission has expressed interest in the past for us to be able to deliver. And so we're looking at delivering that, but there is a little bit of a startup fee on getting all our systems and stuff in place. But we think it'll be a great addition, and we're very interested in adding that to the program.
Okay, yeah, and I wasn't questioning that. I just already, again, you're doing quite well with your commercial program. So would that change your setting of goals, or would you expect to achieve new?
I think it will bring additional customers maybe to the small business program, because we'll have that financing option there. So I think it'll help the programs do even better.
Okay, so
if you don't mind, I'll step in. Just to add a little color to that. This is the first time that we've really had this amount of success in the C&I market. The small business and a few other the C&Is have struggled over the past years. So when we introduced and began talking about the small business advance, it was in hopes that we could take it from a typical 60 to 70% participation rate onward and upward. So that's why we began that conversation about a year ago to introduce it. So that's where we are today to
Okay, so
try and begin.
is the $25,000 for administration, is that part of the $250,000, or is this a request for a $275,000 budget increase?
It's a request for the $25,000 addition.
Okay.
The rest of the budget's already factored in. We've got that covered in what we have for the small business.
Okay, great, thank you.
So here, these are some of the programs that we have added and made changes to. SMECO's EE Kit program was launched in May of 2018. We worked to finalize the fulfillment vendor and get the kit contents determined and finalize the branding. The kits can be redeemed through several different areas, and one of them we were using was our online store to help generate customers to the online store to purchase other items also with their EE kit. We've worked with the data that we have from OHEP and identified customers that have received assistance, and we sent out direct shipped 3,600 kits to those customers that have received OHEP in the past. We included other information on some of the other Empower programs, and also included information and contact information for DHCD to these customers. We also sent kits to the new residential customers that have opened accounts within the cooperative as a welcome package. SMECO feels that this is an excellent opportunity to leverage the kit program and inform customers, new customers coming in, all about SMECO and the Empower Maryland programs. And especially when they're moving into a new residence and trying to get settled, giving them this kit and stuff and helping them get settled into their new home. For the HVAC program, we've spent most of Q1, Q2 working through the transition and design plan for our midstream approach. With that planning, we did limit marketing around the HVAC program in preparation for transitioning over to the midstream program.
So I have a question.
Okay.
With respect to the midstream.
Okay.
So you're moving most or all of your programs?
All the
to midstream.
HVAC.
All your HVAC, right. And are you having any kind of, are you seeing any concern expressed by the local contractors in your area related to the midstream, moving to a midstream?
SMECO took a little bit different approach. We actually, before meeting with the work group and stakeholders, we met with our local contractors and distributors and kind of talked them through the program and what the changes would mean. We got good feedback. We were planning to launch sooner than what we did. And the contractors and distributors were on board with it, but asked us to kind of hold off because they were in their busy season, and making those changes would be difficult during their busy season. So we have met with the contractors and distributors. We participated in the work group meetings and met with the Alliance and the other stakeholders. We think we're in a good place. We've gotten MOUs in place. We actually launched the program October 1st. Our distributors are on board. Our contractors are on board. We've had trainings and working through the process, and we feel that we're in a good position now moving forward with the midstream, and we've gotten good feedback so far on how we've set the program up.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Just to follow up, how many MOUs do you actually have in place there?
We have 4 in place currently, and we have, I believe, 2 others that are close to signing. They're going through the process. They have expressed interest in, or taken the MOU through the process up their upper management and through their legal. So, and we're in talks with a few others, but we've gotten the majority on board currently in our service territory.
Good work. Good job. I like that report. Thank you.
So with the midstream, like I said, we feel we're in a good place. Transitioning over to the HVAC midstream, we were very aggressive on it, so we have moved all HVAC to midstream because we know we're behind goal, And so we're trying to be very aggressive and get up to goal and where we need to be. And midstream's one of the things we think can help us. And we feel that any stoppage at this point could hinder the program, so we asked that the commission, I know there was some feedback from the Alliance of maybe stopping the program and going back through work groups and stuff, but we feel we're in a good place now to continue moving forward, and any stoppage for us could hinder the program.
I think VEIC even mentioned yesterday with OPC that maybe it would be good to let SMECO go off and be a test case for what, how aggressive we've been in this. So we would agree with that statement.
One of our other big tasks in Q1, Q2 was transitioning our QHEC and home performance with Energy Star program over to our new HEIP program. This program moved from a participating contractor model to a closed market where most of the work is being completed by SMECO subcontractors. We feel this gives us better control over the program as it takes off, and it's taken us some time to get through the RFP and contracting process, but we feel this program is on task to do good things. We know we're below target, but we've been getting good customer feedback. We've been making tweaks to the program with the feedback, and we've also identified a few multifamily projects that you will see at the next semi-annual report that we're working on. SMECO also launched our thermostat rebates for the Energy Star certified devices in April of 2018, and we have launched our thermostat optimization program in June of 2018. In the semi-annual report, you'll notice that there were no savings for the Top Saver program, as we call it, for Q1, Q2, and that's due to the need to wait for the cooling season to end and for us to be able to analyze the AMI data and determine the savings. So next semi-annual report, we're looking forward to having some positive saving numbers to report for that program. And then finally, SMECO's continued to participate in all the work groups, and we look forward to continuing participation. And that's all I have if there's questions for us.
I had a question about CHP, and we've had this discussion ongoing. Anything to report, any movement there in the SMECO service territory, and anything to report on maybe some outreach to hospitals or other places?
The hospital side is very difficult for us because the hospitals, the 3 in the service territory, are not served by gas. So it will be very difficult to have CHP there on site without gas infrastructure there necessary. Positive news to report is we're getting closer. We have one customer member that has gotten their final board approval this week or last week. So we have meetings scheduled, and they're going through each of the steps. We're getting closer to getting that CHP project built. The difficulty with that one, since it's taken them a little bit for their board to sign on, is it'll probably be finished in 2021. But it's close.
So no gas in La Plata or Prince Frederick or Leonardtown?
There is not to the hospitals.
Maybe not directly serving the hospitals right now, but I think
it is
nearby.
It is nearby, but to get the infrastructure from where it needs to be over to the hospital is extremely expensive. And we've met with all the hospitals and talked there in our key account program, and we talk extensively about this. But
and I know Calvert's in the middle of a major renovation at Calvert Health, and I just thought it was a good opportunity when they're doing the renovation to have the discussion. So there's a dearth of opportunities for CHP in Southern Maryland, as you know, but you have to take the ones that you maybe could develop. So. All right, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, thank you for the SMECO folks for presenting today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, we'll take a brief break, 10 minutes. We'll be back at 11:30, and I'm not sure if Washington Gas or DHCD is next, but I'll let you figure that out, and we'll see you at 11:30. Rick. At this point, we will proceed with Washington Gas, a WGL company. Mr. Scully.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. My name is Sean Scully, Manager of the Energy Efficiency Program for Washington Gas. I will usually say that I'm introduced by Mr. Dodge, but I know you guys have seen his face many, many times over the last few weeks. And
too much.
I believe that's actually his words, and he was unable to make it today. So if there's any matters that go into the legal space, I will say that I probably will, if you would allow me to refer back to him after the meeting. In the meantime, I wanted to give you guys an update on where we are at in terms of our implementation of our new program cycle. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of questions as they were raised in the last couple of days. We have been ramping up our programs, securing vendors and implementers that we need for this new program cycle. The previous program cycle, we essentially bootstrapped our programs with 2 staff and a rebate processor. This time around, we actually went out and got a implementer that will help us deliver some of the standard programs that the gas utility offers, which are mostly the equipment rebates for residential and commercial customers. And therefore, it has taken us a little time to complete the RFP and select a vendor and get the program standing up. So we will go through some of those issues today in the timeline and some of the programs that are already live as of this week, and hope to change the story going forward from implementation to participation in program performance going forward. So, but anytime, please interject and ask questions as we go through this process. I also want to introduce Josh McClellan. He's our supervisor for our energy efficiency programs in Maryland, and he'll be here to ask a lot of the day-to-day implementation questions you might have, and some of the questions we have about outreach and marketing and event management, things like that we do in terms of getting the word out to contractors, customers, for all of our incentives that we have available. So to discuss we selected ICF as a vendor for our implementation for the residential and C&I programs. That does not include our low-income programs, which we are working diligently with DHCD to get a contract in place for them to be essentially our delivery vendor for the low-income programs, which will essentially be a coordinated program of gas and electric low-income weatherization. The behavioral program, we're in the final stages of contracting with that vendor that will continue our program design, which was from the previous program cycle of 50,000 customers. That's approximately a little less than 10% of our residential customer base in Maryland. And we've taken note of particularly Commissioner O'Donnell, your comments in the last program cycle around the attrition in the program and how you backfill to make sure that you're getting a cost-effective program, that more customers are coming in as you start losing them. So we're trying to redo the program design so we don't fall too far below 50,000 customers throughout the program cycle. It does cause some challenges in terms of the EM&V, but we're designing it so we can make sure that, as we say, we're delivering to 50,000 customers. We're trying to get as close to that as possible throughout the program cycle, because that's what we're saying we're doing. And there are a few other minor program design things that we're changing, lessons learned from the previous program. We expect that...
Mr. Scully?
Yes.
Can you explain why it took more than 9 months to get a contract with ICF?
Well, we went through it took approximately, the RFP process started in February. We got internal charter approval to move forward with that in March, and then we issued the RFP to many vendors.
And how much of the surcharge have you collected since,
Well, in terms of expenditures, I wouldn't say that, the surcharge is set as a projection.
Right.
So I would have to get back to you on what exactly we've collected from now, from January 1st to now. In terms of expenditures, let me just go forward just because it'd be helpful. There's approximately $122,000 in terms of expenditures that we've we've had so far, about 26% of that is actually from EM&V on the previous year. So about $91,000 of essentially labor and procurement and some of the wrap-up of the previous program cycle that's essentially what we would reconcile at the end of the year in terms of our actuals versus the surcharge that's currently on
Right,
file.
but, Mr. Scully, it's practically November,
Mhm.
and we've lost a year.
Yes.
We've lost basically a year, and since the order was issued, I believe, in December
Mhm.
of last year,
Mhm.
and I'm having a very hard time understanding, why it would take, 11 months to hire a contractor I suspect, and I don't know for sure, but ICF has some experience with Maryland and its programs, so I'm just having a really hard time understanding what would take so long, and then also how would you ever expect to, how are you ever going to meet your goals if you lost the full first year of a 3-year program?
Yeah, and we definitely understand that. I mean, this is not taken lightly internally. The RFP process does take several months, and I know there's some other utilities
Well,
that
several months isn't 11.
it's not.
Right?
It's not 11, but it's not. The order was issued December 23rd. We have to go through. We have to follow the process and procedures that the company has, and we get in line with other procurement efforts that are ongoing. Once we are able to select a vendor, to make sure that we're selecting a vendor that is providing a good cost under the budget, then we still have to go through negotiation back and forth with the attorneys on each side to determine the terms and conditions and all those other aspects of it. That took 2 months after we selected the vendor.
I understand, and I understand the challenges of hiring new vendors, but I believe that another company hired a new vendor, and they had programs running in April. So it just seems to be a significant problem, and I understand the surcharge will be, there will be, I understand there are more costs at the beginning of a program year. I understand all of that, but we don't have anything running, and it's November.
We
right?
do have programs running. They launched this week.
Well, I think that's,
I would say that I don't know what the other utility did in terms of their RFP. Maybe they did a preliminary RFP and were able to do a lot of the legal stuff before an order was issued.
I just want you to understand that I think that this is of grave concern, and do you plan to change your budgets and change your programs in order to meet the goals? You plan to change your goals, and then in addition to that, we have a whole new plan that just got filed. And so we have to, review that as well. So I just...
Well, the plan that we filed was just to give you some background. The plan that we filed was what would I call a clean plan. It's based off of your recommendations, your order in December 23rd to show what the revised budgets would be based on and the measures and the programs that were removed from what we had put forward. So that was more of just a courtesy to say this. We've taken your recommendations, we've removed the duct ceiling, we've removed any budgets associated with our suggested coordinated programs, removed those backed out. Here's to, Mr. Hurley and staff, here's our plan that nothing really changes in the plan other than removing the programs and the budget associated with those programs out of the plan. Thermostats, those were another one that we suggested continuing our program. Those were denied, provided that the electric utilities would deliver those thermostat programs going forward. So it wasn't, please don't spend much time on that. That was more of a courtesy of this is a clean plan based off of your order to make sure that if there needs to be reference back, that's probably the appropriate plan to reference. But the narrative, the background, and the cost effectiveness and all the things did not really change.
And which order are you referring to?
The order to approve the programs on last December 23rd.
Last December,
Yeah.
and so the reaction to that came in the end of October then.
Yeah, honestly, I thought it was just as a courtesy to append it to the semi-annual report,
Okay.
Because that was at the time we were asked to provide a program plan for the coordinated programs as well.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to follow up because I sense that you think this is normal. It's
don't-
okay.
I don't think this is normal. No.
Okay, so let me ask my question then.
Sure.
Or you somehow are justifying it. I'm taken a little back by that. So let me just probe on the dollars. What are your all-in program costs for 2018?
As of today,
No, for the year end. What's your first year of your program costs?
I don't know what the projection is right now. Through June, it was the $122,000 according to what we filed, and I would have to run a reconciliation of what it has in terms of staff. We had 2 staff people, 2.5 staff.
So what budget did we approve for you for 2018?
I believe it was approximately about $5 million.
And what portion of that have you collected through surcharge?
I do not know. I'd have to go back and have our regulatory accountants.
At least 10 months worth, probably be 5 million divided by 10, the prorated to 10 months worth. Is that right?
Potentially, but it might actually be set. To be honest, I'd have to go back and look what the surcharge filing was last December to see if since we didn't got approval for the programs, we might be using our previous program cycle as the projection, which would have been about $2 million.
Here's the bottom line for me. You're collecting a surcharge and you're not providing any savings to Maryland and to the ratepayers. We can justify that all we want, then get a contractor online, whatever. That's unsatisfactory to me. Should be to you.
It is. It's understood. I completely agree with you. I mean, that if there is a way to reconcile that, as it is in the end of the year when we actually go through the annual process of the surcharge to make sure that ratepayers are made whole and come back and say our actuals were this, therefore your surcharge should drop for the next year. That's the process that's set up now. If there is a suggestion, open to what that would be in the meantime to make sure that ratepayers are made whole. This is not acceptable to me, and I understand that. I knew that this has been very difficult. We've been trying very hard to get these programs up and running, and just getting internal staff to hire people to run these programs and make sure that it's not just a couple people trying to launch a multi-million-dollar program that's going to help customers is a challenge. It's kind of like starting a new business. And I'm not trying to excuse it. I'm just saying that we have not collected that much. We have collected monies from ratepayers, and that's true. If we can reconcile that quicker with an updated surcharge filing or something that would be helpful to you and other commissioners.
So to be honest with you, I'm going to share my opinion. Your comment that we do have programs up and running, they started this week, was very flippant to me, and it's indicative of how you're viewing this. Right?
Okay, I apologize for that. I did not mean it to be, maybe my tone was inappropriate, and I didn't. But I will make sure that we are maximizing the participation of our programs going forward. We will have to make adjustments on our forecasts, and that we'll work with staff and to make sure that those are in place. But understood. Apologize if my tone and my comment was inappropriate.
Yeah, so I understand the company's going to have to reconcile things and true it up, but to Commissioner Herman's point that we've lost a whole year, it's kind of like sleeping in on Saturday morning and expecting to get that time back in your life somehow. It's gone. You don't get it back. And I don't hear that sentence that we know. So
we do.
Okay, enough. Thank you.
Mr. Scully, you probably wish that Mr. Dodge was in your seat right now. Just a question. When did the Empower surcharge begin to be reflected in customer bills? Was it January of this year?
Well, we've had programs since 2015, so it would have been reflected sometime shortly after that.
Okay, so it's been a line item for several years.
It has.
Okay, all right, thank you. Why don't we get back on track where I think you're on slide 2 or 3.
Okay. We ran through some of this. I'll get to the coordinated programs shortly, but I'm going to leave to Josh to talk a little bit about the program launches as we've recently launched some of the programs here.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Just to give you a quick update as to where we are in terms of implementation. Again, just to echo the comments that have been stated already. It has taken a long time, and we're doing the best that we can, working very diligently with our implementation contractor, ICF, to get things up and running, and we have officially launched some of the programs this week. We've been working very hard with the internal staff and our contractors and the customers that are out there. I think one of the things that we've been hoping to see before the end of the year is what we've been maintaining communications with our customers, saying that these programs do exist. We just don't have the means to essentially provide a rebate. We don't have those systems in place, but now that we do. And so folks have been knowing about these programs for a while now, and we hope to see the applications start running in and start issuing those rebates as quickly as we can. From the time that we brought ICF on board until all the programs are officially launched, it would have been just under 90 days. So even though the entire procurement process and the RFP process has been much longer than anticipated, this small team of contractors and staff have been able to get these programs up pretty darn quick, in my opinion, and we're continuing to do so. We've done a lot of made a lot of big strides with marketing and outreach. We've been talking to the home builders to bring up the new home construction program. We've already done a kickoff meeting and some training for them. Next week we'll be having service provider training for the commercial industrial programs, and we're already putting all of our customers on blast with emails and bill inserts and letting folks know that these programs are live and ready to go, and they can start sending in their applications.
Mr. McClellan, in addition to you and Mr. Scully, how many members of the team are there to work on the Empower program and the energy efficiency projects?
Apart from myself and Mr. Scully, there are 5 fully dedicated folks to Empower Maryland programs. And those are the main updates that I have for just our incentive programs.
And as I put on the bullet point, the forecast savings and budgets will be adjusted accordingly to make sure that that they reflect the delays in the program. Went through the program cost, but if anybody has any questions about the breakdown of that, again, most of that is the utility administration costs and then the evaluation costs associated with evaluating the previous program year.
So if I understood you correctly, if we're taking a look at the bottom pie chart, $91,000 was spent on customer incentives.
No, sorry, that's utility administration costs. So to say that there have been no, in the first 6 months of the year, there were no incentives issued to customers. That was the concern of not having the program up and running.
I'm colorblind too.
No, I'm sorry. That's way too close
blues
to.
are pretty close. Yeah.
All right. But your total costs, I think you just testified, were for the entire year are about $122,000
Through the first 6 months of the year.
through the first.
And so we've added a few staff members since then, and we've added our implementer. So as we go forward in the second 6 months of the year, they're obviously, I would safe to say that we'll be escalating quickly in terms of trying to get as many incentives out the door, have additional costs in terms of labor and implementing costs, and marketing. We call them marketing costs, but outreach, which we're trying to minimize as much as possible by using electronic means, email blasts, and other. And when customers that have not offered their email address to Washington Gas, we rely heavily on traditional methods, particularly bill inserts, are an effective way to get to every customer. And those will be going out in November and December, additional ones in January and February.
Has the merger affected WGL's ability to implement these programs that it's been running since 2015?
I don't think so. I mean, I do rely on other departments. I can't say whether or not their jobs are that much impacted by that. That includes procurement, risk, Office of General Counsel, regulatory affairs, and they're involved in a lot of these other cases. But to put it on them, I'm not going to. That's, it's on us to get this done in a timely manner, and we did not do that.
No, I wasn't looking for other internal groups to point out. I just was wondering about the merger and how it may have impacted the commitment to Empower Maryland.
It didn't. Well, I would say, I am pretty much the sole person responsible for Empower Maryland at the company. It did not impact my time. So if that's what you're asking, or it doesn't impact how I'm organized in the company, or what my tasks are in terms of the merger.
Thank you.
Yep. We already covered some of this, so in the essence of time here, finalizing the additional vendor contracts, we have several contracts going back and forth between vendors and vendor council and our council to make sure that all details are ironed out, but we're pretty close on that. And getting down to the gas electric coordinated programs, there's a little bit more detail, but I know there's some questions about that as well, as we were tapped last December to lead the work group and try to get MOUs in place this year. We did get MOUs in place, signed and fully executed between August 17th and August 22nd, as we filed with our coordinated program plan on September 2nd. So you should have a copy of the coordinated program plan that we submitted, which includes basically a summary of what the utilities are projecting to do in the Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the coordinated programs, which I discussed yesterday. But if you have additional questions on that, I'm happy to answer some of those.
I do.
Okay.
So you have these MOUs in place and signed,
Yes.
and they're fully executed. But your handout says that there's still a lot of unresolved issues. So, including administrative functions, cost effectiveness, EM&V responsibilities, and other implementation responsibilities for each utility will need to be defined in more detail for program delivery through work group meetings. So,
Yeah.
so they seem contradictory. You have MOUs in place,
Yep.
fully executed, ready to go, and none of this foundational basic stuff is
Yeah.
ready.
Some of it has been agreed upon, some of it is not, so I don't want to go into like the detailed back and forth. The work group still has to include all members of the work group and not just the utilities. These are agreements between the utilities of how we think is like essentially an outline of how we move forward. The EM&V, we know that we've suggested and recommended that the EM&V should stay, cost effectiveness should stay with the electric utilities because they're running their cost effectiveness as essentially a dual fuel. They're counting gas savings in their TRC and avoided costs in their PCT. So we want to, there's some specifics that are in place, but there's others in terms of the electric utilities wanted to go back and talk to their implementers to see what sort of changes wouldn't have to be made to their back office to make sure that we could do the invoicing to Washington Gas for the costs of the therm saved. So there is more. That's an ongoing work group. We wanted to get the MOUs in place to say we all agree that between the utilities, this is how to move forward with it, but we have multiple work group meetings that will have to be scheduled in the next few months to make sure that we're in place.
So what it feels like to me is you have an MOU in concept, but none of the details are ready to implement the program.
You can interpret it in that fashion. To me, it was getting a compromise between the utilities to know that not everyone was in agreement on every single detail yet, and we did not want to ignore the fact that there's stakeholders that are not party to the MOUs. The MOUs are between the utilities, and so to ignore their concerns, like OPC has concerns and other stakeholders, they raise those. This is my first time managing a work group, and I've been participating in those in the past, and I'm probably sure that you maybe share some frustrations on some of the progress that some of the work groups make over time. It has been challenging, and I want to make sure that we're making sure that we at least get consensus and move forward, at least with the utilities, and then because we were ordered to get the MOUs in place by a certain time.
So I've been hearing about this for 2 years now, and it's a long-standing issue. I'm not sure we're any closer today. I don't have a sense we're any closer today than we were even though we got promises, it appears like we're making progress. I don't really think that, I don't have a sense that that's the case.
Okay.
Is that wrong?
No, I think it's a very valid critique of it. I feel like it's gotten, there is progress in the sense that we have stuff on paper. This has taken other utilities in other areas of the country years to get in place. And I think we've made progress and assume that we have a timeline for all parties to now adhere to in terms of making sure the coordinated programs are up and running. And it's not just on Washington Gas to make sure that this gets done. It's now everyone has some skin in the game, that this is the schedule that we've all agreed to get it in place. And it requires a lot of effort between the other utilities and their implementers to make sure that happens in this timely manner.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's essential. I'm sure you think it's essential. We're spending a lot of money in these programs, and appropriately so. But we expect a coordinated program, and we expect it soon.
Understood.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do have a couple more questions. When we were talking about having to revise your budgets and your expectations, I believe your original budget was around $30 million for the 2018 to 2020 plan.
The full cycle, yes.
Yeah, right. With energy, with therm savings of about $7 million, right? Mm-hmm. And then the revised plan is $26 million of a budget with less than $4 million.
Mm-hmm.
So we're spending almost as much money to get like half, practically a little more than half of the therm savings. So what's going on there? And because because we've had the delay and because you filed this revised plan to give us the information, is it, how do we reconcile all of this?
Sure. The majority, probably, of those savings came out of the thermostat and the coordinated programs, which were removed from our...
Removed. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Okay. But then the revised plus the coordinated plan is about $36 million, so more than the original. But that's going to have to be revised because we lost a year, right?
Yeah. Yes. But I will say the coordinated program costs, the reason why they went up is now that we have more clear idea of what that shared cost would be between the electric utilities and Washington Gas. When we originally filed our coordinated plan, we had some information of what that might cost in terms of purchasing the savings, that phase one.
Mm-hmm.
When we went through each individual filed electric program on their home performance, the HEI and the QHEC, we pulled out their projected therm savings from those, applied that $3 per lifetime MMBTU, and we're able to get more accurate projections of what that would be. So the reason why is that's generally the reason why that number went from essentially $3 million to $6 million or something like that in terms of the coordinated programs. It's actually might be a little bit higher.
The therms is like 4.2 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the other one of your requests is for 3 pilots under the PIDD plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm confused in your filing on page 7 where you have proposed activities. If we, it doesn't look like you have a lot of money available in your PIDD budget.
No, we don't.
Right?
We don't. This is our first year of having a PID budget. So we, sorry, let me let you finish your thought. Apologies.
So, I mean, are you asking for more money for these pilots? Are you going to revise the pilots that you've proposed under your PIDD plan? I'm confused.
No, we're not asking for any additional money. We would be able to do that within our current pilot budget. I would say that if anything, we're probably going to revise the PID budget down. We might not spend all of it over the 3 years because of the timing and making sure that certain programs that we think that might be good to pilot, we haven't gone through all the planning process and submitted all those details to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to say that we're going to spend all of that, but it's apologies, I don't have the PID budget in front of me, but I think it's a few $100,000 that would go to those pilot programs, and I think that it's realistic to say that we would do that in the 2019 heating season instead of this heating season. So we wouldn't probably file our more detailed plans until the spring to let you guys consider whether or not they're viable and not to move forward with.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Scully. The Commission, as you've heard, will expect to see marked progress come the next semi-annual report 6 months from now. But thank you for your presentation and attendance.
Thank you.
At this time, we will keep going. Aside from staff, we have the Department of Housing and Community Development. If the department will please step forward.
I think she wants to start here, so I guess maybe you're there. Amy's going to be in the first seat. They have asked us for additional information. That's a yes. We may want to merge. I wouldn't want to have it start before January 1st. I think let them off or petitioning away. Are these for the commissioner?
No.
These are
They have notes. Leave them here.
Do you have yours?
Yes.
Not sure if the connection can power, but we'll find out. All right, good afternoon. We will now have the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. Who would like to get started?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, honor and pleasure to be with you. I'm Joe Sehusen. I'm the Director of Housing and Building Energy Programs at Maryland DHCD. And to my right is Scott Falvey, our Senior Program Manager, and Nicola Tran, our Program Manager. We're also joined at the table by Amy Grasso, who's with the DHCD OAG office. And we're hopeful that Secretary Holt will be able to join us. That's likely but not certain. And we're looking forward to sharing with you the results of our semi-annual report, giving you some background on the opportunities and challenges of doing a limited income program, and then also giving you the specifics of the result from the past 6 months. So we look forward to that, and Nicola Tran will walk us through that at this time, and we welcome questions throughout the presentation or obviously in any detail after as well. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Actually, instead of repeating our semi-annual report today, we were thinking to give you a little bit of a deeper look into the low-income programs and what is happening behind the numbers. So we would like to start with a quick insight on some of the unique challenges that a limited income program runs into that are typically not occurred by market rate programs. In the limited income program, more than 50% of limited income homes are found to be in an advanced state of disrepair. This is not an unusual picture for the crews and energy auditors that do the work for this program. Often we find health and safety threats such as mold, asbestos, lead paint, gas leaks, and carbon monoxide. Therefore, a very significant amount of effort and funds has to be spent to address those issues in order to be able to weatherize and provide energy efficiency to those homes. So these are just some examples of homes that our energy auditors and crews run into. This is an example of widespread mold, and this is an example of extreme hoarding. Roughly 3% of the homes that our program encounters have to be denied services completely due to the condition of the home. Of the remaining 97%, 12% of the homes require very extensive repairs that are beyond the program scope, and they can only receive limited Tier 1 services at this point. And the remainder of the homes, those that can proceed forward with energy efficiency programs, they require some level of repairs in order to be able to weatherize. There's not a single home that we encounter that can be weatherized in the status that we find it.
Not one single home.
No. Obviously, not all cases are as extreme as the ones we show here, but there is a level of repair in every single home that the program touches. And one issue that has been brought up a couple of times since yesterday and also today is energy savings. As you're aware, and as NRDC pointed out, there's currently no energy savings goal for the limited income portion of the Empower portfolio. In preparation for this program cycle, DHCD convened a limited income work group in order to help us design this program, because without a goal, there's nothing really to design towards. So we convened the group to get their feedback on what the purpose and intent of this program is supposed to be. There was no consensus on a specific energy saving goal. However, all stakeholders agreed that these 5 points are some of the purposes that the program should be working towards, which includes saving energy. It also includes reducing the energy burden for low-income families, to reach as far as possible into the low-income population, improve the lives with sustainable effects. We will, again, in preparation for the next program cycle, convene the limited income group and pose the question of what an energy savings goal should be. We're certainly not opposed to that. I think to some extent it will facilitate a better comparison, because we find ourselves at this situation almost every year that say the absolute savings appear low. What should the program be held against? If the energy savings, there's no specific goal for it. So the best that we can do for this program cycle is to satisfy the purposes that the limited income work group has set for this program. And then the interesting part is also when you look at saving energy, you can look at the absolute savings, which is the number of kilowatt hours saved, but you could also look at it from a percentage savings. And if you're looking at those relative savings of what the low-income customers save compared to their pre-installation versus post-installation, our low-income customers on average save 13% of their electric consumption if you compare pre-treatment versus post-treatment. And that is above average for similar programs as defined by the our evaluator Cadmus. They looked at similar programs to benchmark where we stand, and most of them are between 8 and 12% of savings on a customer consumption basis. That relates to, on the energy burden side, relates to $315 of average annual savings. We have reached over 16,000 households so far. Customer satisfaction is high, and most customers report that the benefits of the program and the effects that they feel really go beyond energy savings. And we're looking forward to also extending those effects with the MEET program pilot that will start at the beginning of next year. And just a real quick side note, those 13% are from the latest EM&V report that was just issued in September. So that was not in the semi-annual report yet. I'm ready to take a closer look at LIHEAP unless you had any more general questions to what you've seen so far. Okay. The LIHEAP program was a little bit behind in production in the first half of this year. However, a number of hindering factors were identified, addressed, and at this point the program has picked up production significantly in the third quarter. The third quarter had as many units completed as the first and the second quarter combined and is trending towards the forecast baseline. We're expecting to make up the production that was lost in the first half year over the next 2 reporting periods with the help of additional network partners that were brought on board in the first half of this year. We currently have a total of 750 jobs between energy audit and in progress stage, so those are expected to be completed in the second half of this year and would put us at 70% of our annual goal. If you're wondering what that spike is about at the end of the program cycle, that is the 3 months carryover that we have into the following year, into that would be Q1 2021, but we are asked to report that as part of Q4 2020. This map shows the primary office locations for our current network partners. We now have 21 network partners. The blue ones are the SWC, the contractors. The red ones are the LWAs, the weatherization agencies. We now have a total of 21 network partners, which is 6 more than we had at the end of the last cycle. And the BG&E territory now has up to 18 network partners covering that territory. Delmarva has up to 8, Pepco and PE 9, and SMECO 6 of these companies that service that area.
I notice on that map there's only one contractor in southern Maryland and one contractor on the whole eastern shore. That's 13 counties.
Mm-hmm.
2 contractors cover 13 counties?
No, that's not 2. There's a total of 6 covering the SMECO territory. A lot of these partners have additional offices spread out through the state. We only marked their primary offices.
Okay.
So we have a total of 6 network partners covering the SMECO territory.
Okay, and what do you have on the shore?
For Delmarva, we have 8.
8, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, very good. Thank you.
We also provide a comprehensive 2-day training to all network partners in August and expect that the new ones are up and running by the end of this year. We also heard some concerns about high job costs in the first half of this year. And in order to give some more insight into how that comes about, I'd like to go back for a quick recap of some of the program design changes that were implemented in this cycle that are significantly different from the last program cycle. A number of design changes that were supported by the stakeholders and the limited income work group were approved by the Commission to allow more measures to be installed in all jobs. In the past program cycle, the program averaged around 16 measures per job. In the first half of this year so far, we're at 24 measures per job. The intent of these program design changes were to take advantage of the energy savings opportunities that are in the houses that we encounter and to not leave any savings behind on the table. So with adding more measures, that obviously increases the average job costs, and therefore it may put more jobs over the soft cap at $7,500. However, there's increased oversight for those high job costs, and the soft cap, the hard cap for jobs overall is still at $12,000. That has not changed. If you're looking at this chart, it's trying to illustrate the difference between a Tier 1 and Tier 2 job. That was a new program designed for this year. where if we encounter customers that cannot receive whole house weatherization, which would be equivalent to a Tier 2, those customers would be able to receive Tier 1 services, which is limited to baseload measures for the most part. In some cases, they can receive HVAC measures, but no building shell modifications. If you have extreme health and safety issues in the house, you don't want to tighten the building envelope. So in those cases, we're sticking with the baseload measures, which would be a Tier 1 job. As you can see, the average number of measures does not differ significantly. However, the size of the measure does. The Tier 2 measures that are very large in cost and in savings are air sealing and insulation. You can see that in the average job cost. If you break it out by Tier 1 versus Tier 2, the average job cost is higher for Tier 2 versus Tier 1, and also the average annual savings are much higher. So I think this is going to just something to keep in mind over the next periods when we're looking at overall program averages. It really is influenced to a large part of how many Tier 1 versus how many Tier 2 jobs we have. It's essentially bundling quick checkups and home performance jobs into one measure that is being evaluated. So I think that's something that is reported separately in our reporting template, and we will make sure to highlight those differences a little bit more going forward.
You're doing about 750 jobs on average per quarter?
That is the average over the cycle with a little bit of the ups and downs.
Okay.
And just as a perspective, in the last program cycle, we had about 70% of jobs that were Tier 2. All others could only receive an energy kit. And in this cycle so far, 88% of jobs are Tier 2. So there are more jobs that can receive full services. In addition to the tiered job structure, a number of new energy saving measures were added to the job list, so that increases the number of measures that can be installed in a home. Additionally, the measure quantities are no longer limited to arbitrary caps. As you remember, last year we discussed that customers were only able to receive one window AC unit, even though there were 5, in some cases up to 5 inefficient appliances at their home. So those caps were lifted. And then lastly, a number of additional repair measures were added to the measure list that can be installed as long as they result in energy measures that yield savings that are higher in return than the repair costs.
So the bottom photo there, it looks like, I don't know, is it the drywall coming off the wall?
Yeah, so that looks like it was some water leakage through the window. It looks like it may be a skylight. And this is one of the measures that could be repaired. So it requires, some drywall work. We need to make sure that the roof leak or the leak around the window that it originated from is fixed. But it's a relatively small area. So with that repair, we can fix that and then go forward with insulating and air sealing the home.
How does a contractor determine whether it's just sort of fixing the leak here, any mold remediation, repairing the drywall, versus more of a larger scale remodel of the home?
Our contractors are very highly trained. They all hold multiple certifications that are relevant to this kind of work in determining it. And then we also provide oversight through our quality assurance inspectors. So they make sure that those determinations are made correctly. And then ultimately, the amount of work that can be done repairs is judged with the cost effectiveness of the work. If you have to spend too much money to fix it, and that will drop the SIR below the 1.1, then it's too much work to fix it to justify the energy measures and justify the repair.
Thank you.
I'm now ready to switch over to Miha, unless there were any lab-specific questions. MIHA also operates with a carryover of funds, and in this case the carryover funds are for a whole year, and they are reported in the current program cycle. So as an update to the 2017 carryover funding that is being expended this year, the MIHA program had committed a total of 4,000 units. that are completed through the end of this year, and there's only a few left to complete that goal. All of the committed projects that started last year will be completed under that carryover funding before the end of this year. Now this chart shows a comparison of committed units comparing the 2015 program cycle to the 2018 program cycle in green. As you can see, the projects that are already committed in the first half of the year and the applications that are currently being committed for the second half of the year is a little bit ahead of what we had in the same period in the prior program cycle. By the end of the year, we expect a total of 953 units to be committed. And there were also some comments and concerns that there were no projects or savings reported for the first half of this year of this program cycle. And we just wanted to go back into, I think we talked about this last year, of how long these projects take to complete. An average MIHA project from the time it's committed to completion takes about 6 to 12 months. That is why we have that 12-month carryover, and that's why it would be very unusual to see a project committed and completed within the first 6 months of the year.
Can I ask you a question about that? But don't you have projects that are completing within the first 6 months?
Yes, but they're reported under the carryover budget.
Okay, so we don't have a continuity of reporting. We have segmented reporting for the year, and you reset it at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, but the carryover funding is reported in the semi-annual reporting template as well. It's just a separate line item. These are the projects completed under the 17, remainder of the 17 funding. These are the ones reported under the 18.
Okay, thank you.
So really, the better way to look at production in the first year of a program cycle is always looking at the committed units. These are the units that are committed to moving forward, and that will be reported as completed after that 6 to 12 month project duration. In the first half of this year, the program committed 4 projects located in the BG&E, PEPCO, and PE territories for a total of 127 units. Based on the applications that are currently being committed, we expect that by the end of this year, a total of 12 projects will be committed, with at least one in each of the utility territories, which would be a first for the program to have a project in all territories in the first year.
Does that include Chop Tank? Does that include Chop Tank?
It includes SMECO.
Yeah, but does it include Chop Tank?
Well, Delmarva. I don't know
Delmarva.
specifically which project or where the location is, but it's in the Delmarva utility territory.
So, right, I'm specifically asking, do you have, I see you have it in Delmarva, I see you have it in SMECO, but there's another utility on the shore. It's a co-op, and it's called Chop Tank.
Right, but
That's not
But
an
Empower
Empower
doesn't
utility.
fund, Chop Tank's
So
not an
it's not
Empower
covered,
program.
there's
Correct.
nothing in there, okay.
Correct.
That's the clarification I needed, thank you.
And to provide some more detail on the projects that are currently ongoing, we would just like to highlight a few of these, such as Morrell Park, which is a project that's currently under construction, spending under the 2017 carryover funds. This project has a total of 99 units and 2,400 measures, at a total customer benefit of $389,000 in annual savings of 196 megawatt hours per year. Some of the measures at this project include the replacement of inefficient water heaters and PTAC heating units. Randallstown Villa, this is one of the projects already committed under the 2018 cycle in the BG&E territory. Has a total of 74 units, 224 measures, $54,000 in customer benefits, and 144 megawatt hours per year in expected savings. Measures here include upgrades in lighting to LED and additional attic insulation. The top is the before, the bottom is the after picture. And lastly, we have Village at Lakeview, which is also currently being completed under the carryover funding, which has a total of 223 units and 4,700 measures. And then we will, so they have replacements of AC units and furnaces with high efficiency equipment as some of the measures.
And Ms. Tran, what type of facility is the Village at Lakeview? Is this an apartment complex or?
Yeah, all of these are MIHA projects, which would be either high-rise buildings or communities. That there might be 15 or 20 buildings in a project, and it may have 100, 150, 200 units in it. So they are all apartments.
So how does the department handle new construction with regard to this?
Sure. So for new construction, what we look at is the incremental savings against baseline, code measures. And so if a project is aiming towards Energy Star, which all DHCD projects must do with new construction, if there's cost-effective opportunity to increase even above that baseline measure, we'll look at the cost savings versus the cost of the higher efficiency equipment, and the Empower program will fund only that cost-effective portion of that incremental cost.
Okay, very good. Thank you. There's a new construction in the department that I'd like to talk about when we get to the end of your presentation.
Sure.
And that is, in fact, the end of our presentation. We're just ending on this quote. On this quote from one of the MIHA property managers that was very happy with their MIHA project that they received.
It's always nice to get good feedback.
It's very rare because usually, we get the complaints and the happy customers, they only tell Cadmus about that.
Well, I would also like to recognize that we're joined by Secretary Holt. Thank you for appearing this afternoon. I do have one question. Obviously, the department's doing a lot of good work, but this year we received a number of errata filings in addition to your initial report, and our staff have begun to review and process those filings. Can you give us any insight as to where the errors lie this year?
So the challenge that we confronted, we've had a history of being questioned by staff and the commission about the accuracy of our reports, and we promised that we would get our accuracy in line and provide reliable numbers that staff can use to analyze the program. And so we still stand fast to that commitment. And the challenge that we ran into in the beginning of this cycle was, as you notice, Ms. Tran is doing kind of the whole presentation where we used to have Ms. Danielle England, who had been a member of the team really since the beginning of the MIHA program before it became an Empower program. And so she was very well versed in the program and the recording and documenting of the projects and the reporting. We also had a change in the reporting template this cycle, which now delineates the carryover versus the current program budget, which was an issue that we had in the last cycle, getting those two kind of commingled. And we also have a new MIHA reporting database that is designed and implemented, and the challenge is getting the loss of our staff, who's very knowledgeable about the whole program and its operations, but then also getting the database and the reporting template to work together. And the challenge was getting, really the LIHEAP data has been pretty reliable moving forward. It's the template, which is, I think it's, when we see it before we submit it, it's probably 12 to 15 tabs, and there's a lot of formulas and a lot of calculations that go on, and it's been a lot of reviewing and trying to confirm and verify. And so as we were looking at the reports that were submitted, doing a kind of a post-filing quality control check on it, we would find another item, and in our goal to try to present accurate data that's reliable, we filed a revision rather than waiting or saying we'll do it in the next reporting period.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, your staff, particularly Ms. Tran, delivered a very nice presentation. Do you have any comments to provide?
Well, just to say it's a very nice staff. I'm extremely proud of them. They, I think, probably are the nation's best, very frankly. And it's a tough job, a lot of what they do. Weatherizing low-income properties is very, very difficult. I don't know whether you've shown some slides about the condition of the properties, but it's often a very comprehensive retrofit or rehab that's required to make them energy efficient. And so, yeah. So, in any event, I think that it is a unique problem that they address head-on and that they're really very effective in working through. I just want to say that I truly appreciate the support that this commission has provided us. In the beginning, we had a lot of things to resolve and to work through, and basically you gave us the latitude to fix it, and we very much fixed it. And I think we really have, I think, probably the nation's best team at work. And my hope is that we can continue on working together and that we can effectively deliver results. We do have sort of a broad base of responsibility across multiple programs, and I think in each one we're getting the chance to show more of the good that we do, but also to resolve a lot of problems that exist throughout the state. And in Baltimore City, particularly through Project CORE, we've invested creating opportunity for renewal and enterprise. We've invested significant state capital in partnership with the city. And it's sort of that kind of working together to eliminate blight and to resolve some of the concerns that we have in low-income housing from a rehab standpoint and a weatherizing standpoint. We're really on board, and we're firing on all cylinders. So I just want to express my appreciation for all that you've done to sort of help us get aligned properly. And I think the results are clear. And over the next 4 years, 3 years with Empower, I think we're going to do very, very well. So my gratitude.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have questions of the DHCD staff? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Just some comments. Secretary Holt, thank you for being here today. I couldn't agree with you more. In the almost 2.5 years, not quite 2.5 years I've been here, I've seen a marked improvement in these type of presentations from the department, and it's greatly appreciated. And Mr. Husen and the staff have really done a good job, and it's clear. I'm sure my fellow commissioners would agree. It's good to see. And
Thank you.
Your department is particularly important in touching the lives of Marylanders. And I wanted to report to you, about 3.5 years ago, you and I sat in my office in Annapolis, and you brought some of your housing lieutenants down, and I brought some folks from the county one of the counties I represented, and we sat down in my office and talked about what was possible in terms of some housing opportunities for some senior citizens and some disabled folks in southern Calvert County and Lusby. I wanted to report to you today, Mr. Secretary, that the ribbon cutting occurred on Tuesday.
Wow!
I was honored to be in attendance, and I was very, very pleased at that development, and it was a reminder of the important work that your department and your employees, your staff, do to touch the lives of the citizens of Maryland.
Aren't you nice to say that? Thank you. I would have been there. I was in Austin at a conference, though, so I apologize for not being there.
I'm aware, and your deputy secretary informed me of that
okay,
travel.
Good. I wouldn't have missed it.
Well, our appreciation and thanks for DHCD. We'll see you again in another 6 months for the next semi-annual report. Thank you. Finally, to recap today's day 2 of the Empower hearings, we'll have our commission staff return to the table. Mr. Hurley.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Dan Hurley once again on behalf of staff. I know we'll have to just try to keep this relatively quick as we are, the last person on the schedule. I wanted to kind of focus on looking ahead and not really recapping what's happened over the past couple of days. So looking ahead, we have our behavior report that will be filed on December 31st, and that's going to touch on the advanced EMV, and it's going to touch on the surcharge collection and on the potential caps for a behavior report. Surcharge filings will be coming up soon. We'll be seeing those filed by the utilities usually early November, and then those are usually heard at the end of December for the so they can be implemented for the 1st of January for the next year's program. Yesterday, MEA had recommended a template for review as part of our reporting templates. This might come as a huge surprise, but we do have a reporting work group, and we did meet earlier in this year to revise both the reporting templates and the for both the written reports and for the data filing requirements. And we will look into that. We'll share that with the work group and see if we can add that to our reporting templates. MEA also mentioned some new program ideas. So obviously we're near the end of the first year of our program cycle, and our filings for the next program cycle are going to be here before we know it. We do have a new programs work group, and we'll probably be opening that up for suggestions and ideas and thoughts for all the parties, and pretty much have that kind of an open forum that they can reach out to staff and give us some ideas, and then we can try to see if we can set up some additional meetings to discuss potential new program ideas for moving forward. Obviously the big challenge moving forward in the next program cycle is that 2% goal. With the diminishing lighting program, so we're going to need to see new program ideas to try to make up for the loss of lighting. For the EV impact that Commissioner Linton was talking about, so for the next program cycle for 2021-2023, the 2% goal is comparing back to would be 2019 sales. So we'll see after next year what the impact of the EVs will be. The legislation does have this 2% goal for this current cycle and the next program cycle. And I believe sometime in 2022, the Commission will initiate a new proceeding, and we'll revise and look at whether the 2% goal is appropriate or whether we need to come with a new way to establish goals for Empower moving forward. And that'll be a part of that. So we'll see if we can diminish that impact of growing electricity load based on EVs for comparing to Empower programs. And of course, moving forward, obviously the coordination with everything going on with PC44 and all the other types of programs that are in front of the Commission, that's very important. We don't want to see silos of activities. We need to coordinate everything together and move forward as a larger overall umbrella of programs rather than just try to avoid that siloing aspect. And then finally, we have our evaluation work group. And of course, with all these newer program ideas, including midstream, as that's moving forward either as rapidly or maybe pumping the brake on certain aspects of it. But the evaluation work group is looking at ways of the appropriate evaluation of those types of programs. So, the big difference between the midstream and the HVAC programs, the HVAC program, the customer has to get the rebate to be considered a participant. And then we go through the evaluation of that program to see what effect the program had on that customer's decision. When you go to the midstream, all eligible measures that are sold under the midstream count towards the gross savings goal. So that's an important factor for reaching that goal. But the challenge there is evaluating how much of the program impacted that buying decision moving forward. And we could see some net to gross ratio issues where, currently if we're looking at the net to gross for an HVAC program at about 70%, so the gross is 100, the net would be 70. We could see moving forward the midstream, you might see it could be 20%, 30%. You could see reduced savings, and the net savings are what we use to look at the cost effectiveness of these programs. So that's a challenge moving forward as well, just for all these newer programs, to make sure that we are using appropriate evaluation techniques. And the evaluation work group is meeting on almost a bi-weekly basis at this time as we're developing and reviewing program evaluation plans for the upcoming year for next year's reporting cycle. And one of the things we are looking into is the advanced MV. We do have a proposed memo. I can't share too many details, but we do have areas where the AMI data is being used, including the HVAC program currently, and also for the fast reporting process for the performance-based incentive home performance Energy Star program. And we have some recommendations for additional ability to use advanced MFE for other programs. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hurley. This is my first opportunity to review the Empower programs, and I've just been impressed with the size and the scale. It's an enormous program. It's complicated. Utilities and DHCD are heading in different directions, trying different techniques to effectuate energy savings. I'll look forward to the 6-month program, but I do appreciate all the contributions that are being made by not only the utilities, DHCD, OPC, and particularly our commission staff. So thanks to you, EAP staff, staff council, and particularly thanks to Amanda Best, who's one of the senior commission advisors who's helped us prepare for this conference. And I suspect that starting tomorrow she'll be planning for the next 6-month conference. So I've learned a lot over the past 2 days, and appreciate all the hard work and preparation that have gone into creating the presentations we saw. Commissioners, any closing remarks? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Just a quick question, Mr. Hurley. Wanted to ask you about the schedule for the December 31st report. How often will the work group meet between now and then? Do you know? Or do you have a sense of that?
We haven't set up the meetings. We met preliminarily. We had some meetings before all the filings came in. We had to file reports and prepare presentations. But yeah, I'm going to look at our schedule, and I think we're going to be meeting frequently. I think on a probably either bi-weekly basis to really get this wrapped down. And given the fact with the November, December holiday seasons, we're going to have to, I think we're going to do a lot of front-loading work here in the next couple weeks.
If the work was already done, you could probably give it to us now, but I hope it's not done.
It is not fully complete.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up again the demand response topic, and just suggest also that be something that, I don't know if there is a work group or if it's assigned to one of the work group, but just we're non-aggregated DR will be losing its capacity payment. I think, is it this year or next?
I think it's next year.
Yeah, so it's coming up very quickly, and then we also have this proposed load forecasting adjustment that may be, which will require that we consider other designs for our program for deep demand response. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. It's probably not too soon, maybe, to start thinking about where we're going with that.
Yes.
So, and I just wanted to ask too, if given all the discussion that there has been about midstream programs, if you had any comments, any recommendations, based on what the Alliance talked about and what they suggested, or any other guidance we might want to provide in a possible order.
Sure. I think a staff's position, we'll go back to last year. So when the utilities were putting together their drafts of their plans, we did have stakeholder meetings that reviewed the plans, and the midstream was a proposal in the draft plans. There was availability to comment on those plans at that time. Then the utilities filed their 2018 to 20 plans, and there was ability to comment on that time as well. Commission did approve the midstream program. Now, granted, I think the implementation issues are legitimate from the Alliance's perspective, and from staff's perspective, I don't see a problem with slowing it down for the other utilities. Let SMECO, who's on track and already implementing the full midstream suite, continue on, and maybe we can see some lessons learned from SMECO's implementation. Whereas the utilities where the other utilities who've already started that transition with certain products, we would not recommend stopping those products, but we could, slow down the implementation of the rest of the products to see how they get some lessons learned from the implementation from SMECO and then the products the other utilities have already have engaged in the midstream process.
Thank you.
I'd also echo the comments of my colleagues regarding the hard work that's put into implementing this program over the several years, and all of the work that all of you have done, and those who aren't in the room have also done. A lot of that work happens in work groups. It happens in your particular offices of the companies and organizations that you work for. But it also is happening out there in the world with real consumers every day, which is who we're all here hoping to help in some way. Along those lines, Mr. Hurley, I'd also like to suggest that the different work groups, and amongst yourself and all the others, I'm sure you could figure out which one would be the best place to place this, but to focus a little bit on any consumer response to the marketing push that has been established now with the new logo, to see if consumers are getting confused over it, or are they embracing the program more as a result of realizing that it's on their bill, so they're actually paying for it. So just to see what kind of reaction we're getting as a result of highlighting and identifying the fact that the program is existing in a more profound way. So it might be a little early now because we just started, but I'm sure there's many more folks with a lot more background in marketing than myself that could figure out when's the best time to do it and what the results should look like.
I will take that to the marketing work group, and we'll figure out a plan to investigate the consumer response.
The gentleman from Calvert County has a story.
So you may not have heard me say this before, but at the risk of repeating myself, I'll say it. I watched these programs develop as a matter of policy in the legislature for many years, through many iterations and many debates. And I didn't always personally, Mr. Chairman, have a full appreciation for their importance or their efficacy. But I told the folks when I went down to Annapolis after I had been appointed in August at my confirmation hearings and discussions that I had learned a completely new appreciation for the Empower programs and their importance and what they do. And that is a fact. And my experience over the next 2.5 years has not dissuaded me from that. They're very, very important, and I don't want anybody to think that I don't believe they are. They are tremendously important in both cost avoidance, construction avoidance, and environmental impact, and improving the quality of everyday citizens' lives. And so I may give it heck, but that's my style. But these programs and what our professionals do in these departments is tremendously, tremendously important, and I understand that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hear, hear. Well, on that important closing note, and seeing no other business before the commission for this 2-day hearing, thank you for your attendance, and this hearing is adjourned.